It should have started.
Cool.
Okay, so hello, Jessie. I know that you are a meta engineering manager, and I would like to know more about you. So, could you tell me a bit about your current role and responsibilities at Meta?
Yeah, so I'm an engineering manager at Meta Reality Labs. I work on smart glasses, so I work on Ray-Ban Meta, and these are basically it's similar to just like sunglasses with GoPros it's like inside of it. So you can look around, you can just take pictures with a capture button, but I specifically work on the AI assistant that pretty much gives our AI, Meta AI, the ability to see what you're seeing when you want it to. And it can do things like write captions for your post in the moment without pulling out your phone. So, for example, if you're like at the beach, maybe throwing a ball and you want to say, like, capture a video and put it on my Instagram story with a funny caption, for example. So we work on things like that. And then the AI will, see what you're seeing, post to your story, and it can do that whole thing because it's built into Instagram and like Meta's whole like family of apps. So yeah, those are some examples of things that we really think are exciting to build with that. And I can answer any other questions you'd like.
That is so cool. That reminds me, if it is it the glasses that were like on trend on TikTok where like people were just in their mirrors, like posting TikToks?
Maybe I'm not familiar with the marketing that they do for it. I'm more behind
Maybe.
working on the tech, but yeah, I know there's a number of glasses that are smart glasses, but I think ours are really cool. So maybe they were on TikTok.
Maybe. It was a very popular thing. So how did you get started in this industry and what has your career path been like?
Yeah, so I kind of have a non-traditional career path for here. So I started off studying cognitive science. So I didn't quite major in computer science like a lot of people who go into AI nowadays do. But I studied cognitive science because I was really fascinated with how the brain works, how like thinking systems operate. And a big part of that is computational modeling. So if we're to understand how people think and operate, then maybe we should be able to model it and allow like computers or other automated systems to recreate some of the behaviors that we see in people. So then that's really what got me into AI at the beginning. I took a lot of the more coding classes and did a concentration in that computational modeling aspect of it. So really went deep into the tech and like building the foundation, learning Python, C++, Java, all those things that we suffered through during college. But yeah, I did that. Ended up doing an internship at Apple where I started my career. So that was I felt really fortunate to have that opportunity to do the internship, and then that led to a return offer that got me started. So it was working in AI, ML at Apple, and from that I did startups. I was in consulting briefly, and now I'm here in Meta.
Wow. Was your time at Apple like was it before they had this like whole AI? I know they're like very AI now, like AI everything, but was that before or was that like
Yeah,
developing
so
the
it was
product?
before. I know they recently released like an AI offering for their hardware. It was way before that, maybe like 7+ years ago. And we're more behind the scenes also. So it was doing things like just like AI information retrieval, which is like a specific kind of AI that was for like business knowledge. So it was really like a system that did stuff for people to make decisions on internally. So it was more like that kind of thing, not really like the customer facing product like Siri, for example, which was their older version of what I think they're calling Apple Intelligence, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. AI, I guess it works out. Do you think that your undergrad really mattered in this case? I know you did cognitive science, which like by the way you say it, it does have a lot in line with AI. So do you think that really like mattered?
Hmm. I will say that it mattered in that it allowed me to explore what I was interested in and come to the conclusion that I wanted to do AI, and it just got me excited about building things, and that it gave me the free time to just explore that. So it was a really creative major. I really liked the cognitive science major for that reason. Did it teach so much of like hands-on, like, hey, here's how to train a model, or like here's a little bit. It allowed me flexibility to take some of the AI classes that there were at UC Berkeley, and machine learning versions of it. So I think it was a really cool major to get into AI. Not everyone who does cognitive science goes into AI. I think there's a lot of things you can do with that major. But yeah, I would say it was helpful, not required. I think a lot of people who go into AI do engineering, some other kind of engineering like EECS, which was like electrical engineering and computer science, which is super practical. It's like, here's how the hardware works, here's how the firmware, like all those really granular things. I was more on the software, so like very high level, still coding a lot, but um, that was by choice because CogSci was super flexible. I think by default it wouldn't have been as relevant to AI as I made it.
Coding is so hard to learn. I think two more questions arise. I know I'm like keep on going on top of it. First, how did you find your internship? And also, I think I'm blanking out. Um, I forgot my second question, but I guess that first question is fine.
Yeah, how did I find my internship? So yeah, I think when you go to an engineering or a school that has a really strong engineering program like UC Berkeley, there are a lot of companies that do recruiting events, and that's one of the unique opportunities that I think going to
Mm,
Berkeley allowed me to take advantage of. So I went to an engineering recruiting. It was not a career fair; it was an Apple specific engineering recruiting event that I think I heard through a friend about. And yeah, it was one of those events where you show up with your paper resume, you kind of talk to a recruiter, they either give you feedback and they reach out if they're interested. So that gave me like the FaceTime with someone. A lot of the times if you apply online, you don't know where it goes. Maybe you go into some queue and there's some keywords that probably let you be relevant or not. In those cases, there's a lot of people competing for that. When you're in person and talking to a recruiter, you get that FaceTime. You kind of get to show things um, that don't come out in the resume, like your excitement, personality, things like that. So that was really what I think. That was not the first one that I went to. I went to a ton of other ones that I didn't get reach outs to. So, but I do think it helped a lot.
awesome. That's crazy. Your first one reach out was Apple, or one of your first ones.
No,
Um,
like I definitely did a lot of searching before finding that one, but I feel like by chance that one I really hit it off with the recruiter. It was a great opportunity.
Amazing. I've noticed like one more. I've noticed that a lot of the mentors in this program are like electrical engineer backgrounds, which is
Mhm.
crazy. Like
Mhm.
good 50%, I would say.
Mhm.
All right, next question. What does a typical day look like for you?
Typical day. Yeah, so I guess the response that any engineering manager will tell you is that there's no typical day but yeah, I would say overall, maybe a typical week I can tell about is that do a lot of routine check-ins with my team. So I do have a team of 10 plus people, and it's really important to talk face to face versus just some companies you might do like engineering updates in a spreadsheet or something like that. I think I really value that FaceTime, checking with someone weekly. So with a growing team, I think it's super important to do one-on-ones. We do 30-minute one-on-ones. Talk about not so much project status, but it's sometimes like helping people understand how what they're doing affects their career goals, and really sometimes unblocking people where they have there's an escalation where they depend on something from another team or like another person that's outside of our org, and they're kind of stumped. They've tried talking to the person, and maybe there needs to be like a manager escalation. Either I can deal with it, or in a lot of cases bring my manager in or like someone who can help. So there's a lot of that, like like unblocking people, and I do that. That's probably what takes up a lot of time sometimes, where I'll get a chat where something that we thought was going to be there has a blocker, and then we need to deal with either a workaround or like how can we make
Mm,
sure the right people prioritize what they need to do. So there's a lot of like routing of requests and like talking to people. So that probably takes up a lot of the time that is not in meetings. It's like responding to chats, adding people to chats, basically being a little bit of the glue to help make things happen. There's a little bit of coding that I think I like to stay technical. So there is some of that reading technical documents, coding by doing like queries, like SQL queries, just like look at the data. Maybe because our AI really depends on high quality data, so it's everyone really needs to like see like what the system is predicting, what is going into training things. So I've built a routine about kind of looking at stuff and being close to it myself versus being like a manager who doesn't really look into it. So yeah, that's a lot about what I do. Um,
Yeah. So it sounds like the AI that you're developing, it's more like a how do they call it? Like everyone is working on different parts of it. It's not like you pass on the project to more people to develop it more, but everyone's working on the same thing
Yeah, so
almost.
there's a lot of people that go into making an AI product because, yeah, there's so many, even you think about it as one feature, like Meta AI is one of the ways that we brand it. But it can do a lot of things, right? Like post to your Instagram, write captions for you. All these things have to have groups of people who specifically track, like, how good is it at doing this? And then how do we help it be better at this based on human feedback? In a way that allows it to get better at these specific skills. So it's not just like the AI does the thing. And I know a lot of companies who build these general AI products, they're organized like that, where people are responsible for making it good at specific things, and all the work that goes into improving that.
Awesome. So I know timing wise, I said 5:50 we end. So when do you actually need to go by?
6:30 is when I have to go. But I have a
Okay.
meeting. Mhm.
We'll try to finish by 6. So what are the biggest challenges you face in your role? Are they like people centered or like actual work centered?
The biggest challenges. Um, I do think a lot of the challenges are not technical. I do think that because we have to organize, especially in my role as a people manager, because we have to organize so many different people in order to make this really ambitious goals happen. Sometimes there's the friction of one group, let's say, who's doing data labeling for us, doesn't quite understand the the challenges that we're facing and has to maybe we're blocking them and we have to give them something and we kind of have to communicate a lot of communication back and forth where we need something from a group of people who have a different like focus area who we don't understand their challenges. So it's like a lot of that talking to people, prioritizing, and yeah, just clarifying. So that's a lot of the work that an engineering manager does, and sometimes that other non directly technical people will do. So that's it's the communication and timelines. Mhm.
Yeah. The title really lives up to what you do.
There's a lot of
Um, what do you find the most fulfilling about your work and like how fulfilled would you say you are on a scale of 1 to 10?
a scale of 1 to 10. What I find, so yeah, I do think I like the domain, the product that we're building, but as something that really keeps me going is helping people progress in their career. I think I really focus on the team and building out the team and helping people build out the skill sets that they want to achieve in their career. That's probably the most rewarding thing. Product launches and hitting metrics do matter a lot, but I think the team and seeing people like actually achieve their goals and maybe they didn't the first time and they get some feedback from others and we kind of talk about it and then they get it this time, right? So that's especially like promotions or like ratings that people were going for and they get. Those are some of the most I'll say fulfilled. So yeah, I think the people milestones is what I find fulfilling. And on a scale of 1 to 10 overall,
Mhm.
pretty happy with the field that I'm in. I would say, well, in one thing, I don't know that a job is the only thing that has to fulfill
Yeah,
you. As far as like
true.
what a job can do, I'll say this is like almost checks all the boxes. I will say like 9, right? But then that's one aspect of your life in order to feel truly fulfilled.
Yeah,
There's other things, but yeah.
I agree. Are like this is a separate question, but like are most people on your team or like most people that you manage, what is their like level of education? Is it like the same story as you or were they like a straight line career path? Do you know?
Level of education. So because it's an AI organization and there's a lot of depth that has to go. I think my specific role is really people oriented, but with the technical depth, like people who have the title research scientist or machine learning engineer or software engineer, mostly the research scientists, but people do, I would say maybe on a given team between 25 to 50% of the people in our org have PhDs, and maybe most people have master's degrees. And it might be the exception. Like my specific of just being a bachelor's is more an exception. Even a lot of the other people managers have higher education, so they have like their own pathways that they got into this place. So people do have diverse backgrounds, but I do think that like sometimes the PhD is in something totally unrelated, like a biology or like some other type of system
Wow.
science. But I do think that higher education as a theme is almost a requirement to be a really deep technical contributor, which are the people on our team who are they're super smart.
Yeah, but it's not required. You can do it.
Yeah.
Um, how would you describe the work culture at company? You can choose to skip this question if you want.
Work culture. I'll say the no, yeah, the culture is great. I do think that there's a lot of moving fast that comes with some challenges. So there is a lot of pressure to deliver something great for the customer. I think that they're super customer focused, and we have to be measurable. So there's a lot of emphasis on what can you measure, like what metric can you hit, because I think you can't control what you can't define a metric for. That's like one of the philosophies that I think has allowed our company to move super fast. So because there's a lot of that emphasis, there's um, just like the way that we work is like super fast. There's this saying like move fast and break things. So I think that that is definitely something that we see a lot. Sometimes because we're trying to hit a goal, we'll make mistakes and like the system will go down, or like we'll have a quality regression where we thought we improved something, but it's actually way worse. So we have to go back to the previous work. So some of that thrash, that back and forth, that drive to like keep hitting the goals has it's like, well, now we got to shift the way that we think about this whole problem because it didn't work out. So that has its like mental load. But I would say overall, if it's high performance based and there's a lot of um, yeah, it's like we're very transparent about like what we're measuring as a product. So that's in a lot of ways refreshing.
I think it's also like a trend with like big tech companies that they expect employees to deliver quality at
Yeah,
a very high pace.
yeah, yeah.
So are there any misconceptions about your job or industry, especially like AI now?
Misconceptions. The misconception that do I have a good miss?
I guess like one is like, do you think AI is going to take over your job?
Um, I don't know. I think there's a lot of the human aspect, like the decision making, like what should we build? As AI gets better at doing a lot of the tasks that people used to spend a lot of time on, even some things that we consider like very sophisticated, like coding, certain types of coding, the problem that people get to solve is not like how should we build it, like what like how should we build it, or like actually building it, but in thinking about why should we do something or like what should we build at all, where the building part might be as simple as saying for the AI to do it. So I think the like philosophical part becomes more important, and I think that AI won't replace that, because there always has to be someone who decides what to do. Field. So the field of I will say getting good at prompting AI systems, so a field that's growing called prompt engineering, really matters. I think that's something that will become increasingly important. Like, how do you get AI systems to do what you want them to do? In a similar way of how do you get computers to do what you want them to do? That's like a lot of the hands-on coding that even 5 years ago was like the most important thing. I think the coding will. There's some ways that you do have to get in there and like code and really understand the details. But a lot of things I believe would get abstracted. At least even some of the things that are like tedious, where good prompting can yield really good code if you're like a engineer who really understands that. And but bad prompting may a lot of people may try something, maybe they haven't looked into prompt engineering courses or like these standards that it's legit a thing. It's not just ask it. Then that'll really give you an edge. Where some people think like, oh, look, AI is dumb. It didn't do what I asked it to do. But it does have limitations, but specific prompting and the structure of how you ask things can really help you be a better builder.
I think so too. When I'm like with ChatGPT, I'm like asking it these questions. It's like, no, you're not doing it right. Yeah, I use it for a lot. I guess my question would be like this and machine learning, like is it that you're submitting the data so that so that it's like learning? Because all of us are kind of familiar with the term machine learning, as in like you put in data that we find on the internet and then we yield something back to us. So is that kind of like, I guess it's not exactly the same, but does it have like similarities? I know it's like prompting, so
You mean like AI versus machine learning?
I guess it's also like the aspect is like machine learning a big part of what you do?
hmm Yeah, I will say that machine learning is how all these things work under the hood. At the end of it, there's always data that's getting labeled, either data from that, like a lot of it is like specific instructions. So this is a little technical, but generative AI systems rely on something called SFT, which is like structured fine tuning, where it's like question and then there's an answer. So it's like when I ask this, here's the example of the good response. That's a simplification, but that's one way in which we can make these systems better. Is just giving it a bunch of examples where there was a prompt and then here's what you should have said. Um, that's something that is basically machine at the end of it, it's just like data labels and it goes into feeding it into the training job and it makes it better. So yeah, there's a lot of machine learning. There's at the end of it, it's just like crunching numbers and learning from examples.
Yeah. I think this is like more of a fun question. It's not really technical, but I know you said you worked on the glasses. So is there like someone testing out the glasses every day, like putting it on, like asking it questions? There has to be someone like that.
There's totally people testing out the so we do a lot of QA, like just like QA testing. That's a really important job in our company especially. But yeah, people trying to break the system, giving it edge cases and learning where we can improve. There are specific people doing that. I know in a lot of AI products, but in ours it matters a lot because there's a hardware attached to it as well. So yeah, there are people doing this.
Awesome. Okay. We can so we can s- okay, are there any specific tools or technologies you rely heavily on in your work?
Tools or technologies. Python I would say, is the gold standard for working on AI. And sometimes you go deeper and you work on like C or C++. Those are two things that if you get comfortable with the frameworks like PyTorch and just like scientific Python to look at the data, then that's a good place to start. And there's a lot of tutorials and like YouTube free resources for people to get better at these things.
Awesome. Okay. How do you see AI evolving in the next 5 to 10 years?
How do I see? Oh, that's hard to predict. I think it'll get better at giving you what you want it to do. I think right now there's a lot of um, the importance of prompt engineering is like basically super important. I think in the future it'll just get better at predicting what you want to do. Like you see this in a lot of features where there's memory now where it knows like the type of prompts that you do because you keep asking it things and you give it feedback. So really personalized to where you don't have to explain yourself every time. Um, that I think will be something that it's going to get more personalized and the way that you prompt will get simpler.
So that's like the definitive answer. That's going to change, but other than that, it's hard to predict what else could be
Other than that,
replaced.
yeah, how I think there's a lot of hardware limitations right now with
Yes.
there's like GPU accessibility. It's like super expensive to develop new GPUs. Electricity is like really expensive. Training these things is very expensive in the like tens of millions of dollars in some cases. So I think that will definitely change as we get better at the hardware, but I'm less close to how that works. So I don't know how to predict it.
Awesome. So can you recommend any resources for someone interested in this field?
Yeah, I'll say, yeah, YouTube as a resource is definitely great. Do I know specific ones? I'll say like Free Coding Camp is a good I think they have their own website, but they also have great YouTube prep, and those are some great ones. I think if you're trying to break into the field and get interviews, there's tons of free resources. Cracking the Coding Interview is a great book that was been super helpful for me. Every time I have to do interviews, I go back to it. And it has a lot of explanations too. So it's like a good book to just read from beginning to end. If you're more like, okay, I already know how to code, but I just trying to get a job. If you're trying to learn to code, yeah, Free Coding Camp has like hour long like 3 hour long stuff on YouTube, playlists even that build on each other. Those are some really good ones. Mm.
But yeah. Okay, I'm gonna end the interview, but I still have one last question.